Hi friends, welcome to Growing as Grown-Ups, where we believe each of us has the opportunity to keep growing in ways that can fundamentally improve our life effectiveness, our leadership influence, and our well-being. Through interviews, stories, and practical principles, we explore how you can accelerate your growth and unlock your potential to make the difference you want to make. And now, your hosts from the Leaders Lyceum, Dr. Sarah Musgrove and Dr. Keith Eigel.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Growing as Grown-Ups podcast. Sarah, I'm so excited for today. We have Bill Renje with us, a friend of yours for quite a while. Really inspirational story. I mean, what he's been through. Tell us a little bit about your interview with Bill.
Yeah, so Bill is a friend of mine from church. I've known him and his wife, Amy, for as long as I've lived down south of Atlanta. He is a quadriplegic and was, as his wife likes to say, was on the wrong side of the war on drugs back when he was 18 and ended up getting shot in kind of a drug bust and has been paralyzed from the chest down since he was 18. Has gone on and has won 2 gold medals in the Paralympics playing wheelchair rugby, which, if you've never seen it, is terrifyingly intense. And just somebody that's been a good friend of mine and my husband's and had such a cool story. And I thought, the challenges that he has been through are unlike anybody else I know in real life. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to share his story with me on this podcast. One thing I do want to make a note about before we jump in is, like I said, I know Bill and his wife through our church, and his faith is a really important part of his life. And you will hear that theme over and over again. And for him, it's just really where he finds comfort. It's where he finds guidance. It's just a really grounding place for him. And I know for some people, religion comes with a lot of baggage. And I would just encourage our listeners to hear Bill's story and listen through the light of how he finds grounding in that, how he's not letting it determine his life, but he is letting it really guide him in ways that are mature and I think will be really motivational to people, even if faith is not a part of their story.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. So let's jump in and listen to the interview, and then we'll check back in afterwards.
Bill Renje, welcome to the Growing as Grown-Ups podcast. I am so excited to have you as a guest today. We have been friends for about 3 years, I think, and our families have really done life together for the last about 2 years. And I know bits and pieces of your story, but I've never actually sat down and had a conversation with you about your full story. And so I thought, hey, why not do it on a podcast for everyone to hear? So why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Well, good morning, Sarah, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And my story really starts 30 years ago. I'm 49 now, and when I was 18, I was shot in a drug buy and ended up quadriplegic, paralyzed from the chest down, and everything that's happened since then has been really shaped by that experience. And today I'm doing well and living life to the full, and I'm married with 3 children and serve in active ministry in the area here that we live in, South Atlanta, and just going through life. So I've been blessed in a lot of ways to see a lot, to achieve a lot, to have a lot of different life experiences that I have now to be able to share with young people, which is the primary thrust of my ministry, as well as my children. Amy and I have been married for 20 years. It'll be 20 years in January, and we have 3 children. Nico, who just turned 15, and twin 12-year-olds, Danny Ray and Noah. So life is full of challenges, as it is for all of us, and but it's certainly not boring and very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And you have such a great family. We love you guys so much. So The premise of our first series of the podcast is talking about the challenges in life that have shaped us and turned us into the people we are now. So you mentioned already that at 18 you were shot, and it's had some lifelong consequences. So I may be making an assumption, but I'm guessing that might be one of the biggest challenges you faced in life. So, kind of an opening question, as you think back on your life, what is one of the biggest challenges you faced?
Yes, that's a very good assumption, and pretty accurate. So for me, I grew up in what you can pretty much would categorize as a very normal upbringing. Nuclear family, mom and dad in the home, and two younger brothers, and I played baseball and football, and Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and did all the normal stuff. And then when I became a teenager, started making a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions, mostly surrounded around the types of friends that I was hanging out with, and then put myself in a situation where with some negative influences, where we're at a party and ended up in a drug buy at 2:00 in the morning, and ended up on the wrong end of a bullet shot by a police officer, actually, in the process of trying to buy drugs. And so that the bullet went in, pierced my spinal cord, and left me paralyzed from the chest down. So I have impairment in all four limbs, and really that's been the challenge that shaped me. But I've been blessed in a lot of ways. I was left with enough independence where I was able to take care of myself. But that's really been the main challenge that's shaped me and grown me every step of the way. I mean, life is full of just normal everyday challenges that we all have to deal with, and as parents and spouses and providers, and just going through life. But that's been the one that's really tested me, and that God has used me to really develop a perseverance and the ability to fight through adversity. Which again, hopefully others see that I'm able to minister to. So that's been the kind of the guiding force of my life, has been my relationship with God. And I just kind of share that with people because that's been important to me, and that's been the thing that's been able to sustain me and help me get through, along with the support of my family, starting with my parents from day one, and my brothers, and the friends that God's put around me as well, to kind of help me get through life. We all need that support network. We all need those people that we could reach out to kind of guide us and help us and lead us along the way.
Yeah, that's definitely been a big theme with, I think every one of our guests is talking about the importance of the people that are around you and support you, and having what we call them developmental relationships of people that really come alongside you and help you grow into the people, the person that you are today. So I know it was a few years ago, but if you can put yourself back to 18-year-old Bill, right, who finds himself in the middle of the night trying to buy drugs, shot by a police officer, in the days and weeks and months following that, how were you making sense of the world at that time? What were you thinking about those days?
Just trying to deal with the shock of it all, and what life was going to be like. When you grow up, nobody says they want to spend their rest of their life in a wheelchair, or spend their life as a quadriplegic. And so obviously that wasn't something that was on my radar growing up through middle school and high school. And now all of a sudden I'm 18. I'm a recent high school graduate, and okay, what does the rest of my life look like? And but for me, there's just always been a sense of resiliency inside of me that's I think a trait that I inherited from my parents, and just always being one that was able to look on the bright side of things. Like, okay, for me, early on, when I realized I had enough independence to be independent, to live independently, to be able to take care of myself and get up and get out and go drive a car and do what I need to do throughout my life, I realized, okay, I could do this. And so then it was just trying to figure out, what do I need to do from here and to be successful. And I wasn't really focused on academics when I was in high school, and But I realized after this happened, I'm not going to be able to work with my hands to make a living. So being a construction worker or a blue collar guy that's out the window. So I need to learn how to use my mind and my brain. And so for me, it was getting back and going to junior college and getting my grades to the point where I could transfer to a 4-year school, which I did, growing up in the south suburbs of Chicago. I went to junior college there and then transferred to the University of Illinois, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree. And it's there where I really started playing wheelchair sports and thriving athletically. And that's why I'm a big advocate for sports, because sports teaches us so much about character, about who we are, about teamwork, about how to work with others. And there's just so many life lessons. And, so a lot of my ministry is geared towards around young athletes, because I think they have an advantage about learning about life. And so, when you combine what I was learning academically with how I was growing athletically as a young wheelchair athlete, that really, helped give me a foundation to learn about success, how to achieve success, and then how to handle it, and also how to deal with failure, because, it's part of athletics too, is, you don't always win, you lose. So you learn how to lose, you learn how to learn from your mistakes and grow from there. So there's a lot of, things that you learn athletically from the playing field that you could take with you into the game of life. So that was really early on. It was probably my involvement in wheelchair sports more than anything. And then surrounding myself with good people too, because, pre-Bill at 18, I had a lot of negative influences around me. I was just, that was just how I was drawn. I was drawn to more of the negative influences, and one of my favorite Bible verses is 1 Corinthians 15:33, which says, "Don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." And I definitely allowed myself. I had good character. I was raised with good character, but I allowed the people that were around me to influence me in negative ways. And then after my injury, and I started surrounding myself with better influences. And it's a pretty simple formula in life. If you want to be successful, then surround yourself with people who are serious about being successful, and at the same time, emulate people and find people in whatever field you want to get into that are successful, and do what they're doing.
Yeah. And that especially, this happened to you when you're 18, developmentally, like that's such an important age for you to be mindful of the people that you are surrounding yourself with, because, you have teenagers, I have teenagers. It's like those early years are really when we are looking to the people around us as examples of who we want to be, what we're going to do, the choices we're going to make. So you've mentioned a few things that I think are really interesting. And I want to think through, or I want you to think through, because I can't think this for you. The pivot that happened in your life in that season, where you went from being out doing drugs, right? Which is what got you to the
Correct.
point that you ended up being shot and paralyzed. You mentioned this resiliency and this perseverance that was in you. I'm guessing from a younger age, but then the point where you realized, okay, I have to change my future plans. I have to wrap my mind around this new identity, right? Of I'm not going to be able to do the things I had pictured for my mind. So I'm wondering, in terms of the way you were understanding yourself in the world, what did you have to work through in yourself to make that change? Because right now you are such a strong, independent, resilient person. What are the battles that you had to overcome internally to get to that point?
I just think, identity was a huge one, because, it's different when you're you're in a wheelchair. It's a whole different identity. I mean, you're not like 99.9% of the population. So it's like, where is your identity coming from? Is it coming from what's on the outside or what's on the inside? I mean, everybody has problems, everybody has issues in life, but you can't see what other people are going through just by walking down the street. Well, you could see what I'm going through, and you could see what I've been through. So there's no hiding. There's nowhere where to run and hide. It's like, oh, so you don't know all of what I've dealt with or all of what I'm dealing with, but from the physical aspect, you can certainly see that. So for me, it's just where was my identity? And for a long time, I buried myself in, academics. So when I went to the University of Illinois, I was going to be the best student I could be. And, I graduated, on the dean's list and received a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in journalism. So I was drawing my identity from that. And then, from there it was wheelchair sports and trying to achieve at that and, drawing my identity from wheelchair sports and ended up winning a gold medal in the 96 Paralympics and then in Atlanta, and then the 2000 Sydney Games in Australia. And so, there was, but all of that was fleeting, all of that kind of came and went. And then, what was the next thing that I was going to grab onto? And then, as a Christian man, I mean, I have to include that I gave my life to the Lord when I was 24 years old in 1995, and I was 6 years post-injury. And that made me realize that, my identity isn't in being in a wheelchair. My identity isn't in being a great student or being a great athlete. And, once I got married, it wasn't in being married and it wasn't in having kids. It was, my identity, was in Jesus Christ. And that was important for me because that's something that can't be taken away. So once I kind of adjusted my mindset, and, I still struggle with these issues. I mean, I still struggle with trying to fit in and being a part of, whatever group I'm around because, again, it's unless I'm with guys that are just like me that I played, wheelchair sports with or whatever, which, I'm not in those circles too often anymore. I don't always feel like I belong, but, I have to realize that my identity isn't in, my disability or my athletic achievements of the past or my academic achievements or, again, family status, marital status. It's not in what I achieved in the business world before I got into the ministry. It's not in who I am as in my ministry. My identity needs to be in my Creator. And so that wasn't just like a sudden shift that didn't happen in a day or a week or a month. I mean, it's been a lifelong process and it's still going on today and will continue to go on until I'm no longer here.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, Bill, you are the first guest we've had on our podcast who has not been through one of our programs or, sat through a talk that Keith or I did. And yet the truth that you just expressed is foundational to the work that we do. And what you were talking about is what we refer to as this effectiveness transition in life, where we go from looking to outside sources to define who we are, what matters, letting our circumstances influence our well-being. And then we all hopefully go through some transition in life where we become grounded in who we are, what we believe, what matters. And it's when we make that transition that we're really able to be more effective in the influence that we have. We are not swayed by our circumstances as much as we were before. And that really is the heart of our work, is helping people make sure that they overcome that hump. And what we talk about, and the reason we're doing this series on the podcast, is that it is the challenges in life that provide the greatest opportunity for us to work through that, because we realize the way we were making sense of the world doesn't fit anymore. There's all these challenges and contradictions that happen that it's like, hey, the things that I was putting my identity in, that's not working anymore. These friends are not working anymore. These achievements aren't getting me what I thought. I got to figure out who I am. And for some people, we talk about the average age of that transition happening is right around 40, but you had this massive challenge that happened to you early in life that made you wrestle through that a lot earlier. And so, the thing is, we have to look at people like you, and we look at Martin Luther King, who is somebody who made this transition way early in life. And it's like, we don't all have to wait for these big challenges to come our way, right? Like, I don't have to go through what you went through in order to go through that internal process of establishing my identity. I can use the challenges I face with friends, or 2020, I think, has provided everybody with enough challenges to go, oh, the job that I
Absolutely.
thought was going to get me through, the job isn't working. Or, struggling raising teenagers, as well as I do, that is bringing a whole new world of challenges. And I think, that really captures, your story really is a great example of how this massive challenge that happened to you had such an influence. But for even people like me who haven't had a big challenge like that, but have had a series of little ones, we can still use that same principle. So I don't want to jump over this just because I think it's pretty cool that I have a friend that has gold medals, but will you just tell a little bit, you've mentioned a couple times your wheelchair athletics, just what your involvement with that was, and the cool things that have come out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a sports-minded person and love sports from a fan standpoint and playing sports. So I was always involved in athletics growing up. Unfortunately, I got away from that in high school when I was a little more focused on doing the wrong things, and I didn't want the sport, the discipline and the structure of sports, and it was more fun to like go out and party and do that kind of thing. But after my injury, I was introduced to the sport of wheelchair rugby, which is, a sport specific for quadriplegics, and it's played on a basketball court with a volleyball, and it's much like football. There's a goal on each end of the court, and the object is to get across the line with the ball, and you get a point. And it's much like bumper cars and wheelchairs. There's a movie out there, a documentary that came out in 2005 called Murder Ball, and there's all kinds of videos that people want to Google on, go on YouTube or whatever. But that really filled a competitive void for me. And it wasn't something, again, that I jumped into and I was great at doing. I mean, my first year, we had 14 guys on the team, and I was 12th on the depth chart, and didn't even make the traveling squad with the club team that I was playing with in Chicago. And so, but by my second or third year, I became a player that was a starter. When I went down to the University of Illinois, started playing down there. And then by my fifth year, I was invited to try out for the Paralympic team, and went out to Colorado Springs, and they took the 42 best players in the country, and they chose a team of 8. And, I made one cut after the other, and I was still around at the end when they announced the team on, after lunch on Sunday. And so I made the Paralympic team and came to Atlanta for the 96 Paralympics, where we won the gold medal. And then I was, tried out, and, I was a member of the national team for the next 4 or 5 years, and went to Toronto and won the gold medal and world championships in 98, and then Sydney, Australia in 2000.
Yeah, and you may have covered this already, but you've mentioned a couple times in the context of sports how the lessons we can learn from failure and adversity are really important. So can you just give me maybe one of those lessons that you think we all should learn?
Yeah, I mean, just don't give up. I mean, it's such a cliche to say, but two of my favorite scriptures that I quote to young athletes, and what I've done for the last 10 years, I've been in ministry involved, for the first, up until last year, I was on staff with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I have a new ministry now, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But I've been working with high school athletes and just relating my story and the lessons from life. But, two of the verses that I always quote is James 1:4, which says, perseverance must finish its work so you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. And so when we persevere through trial, when we persevere through struggle, that helps us to become mature and complete. And then, Romans 5:3-5, that says, and I'll paraphrase it here, but we know that, when we go through struggles, that leads to endurance, and endurance leads to character, and character leads to hope. And so many people really just quit at the suffering. They quit at the struggles. And for me, I've learned in life, not to quit. Look, I'm like anybody else. I don't want to struggle. I don't want, to have trials and tribulations, but that's just a part of life. I mean, we're all going to have struggles. We're all going to have trials. But I really believe that if we persevere through those struggles and we persevere through those trials, there's light at the end of that. And that's what develops the character, and that's what develops the hope. So that's really, if there's anything I've learned in life, it's that it's don't give up.
Bill, it's like you have been through our program, right? What we call the formula for growth. And we have this plastered on our wall at the office. People who have listened to the podcast have seen it in the background of some of our episodes, but our math formula for growth, as if it was that easy, is that challenge and contradiction over time, when you persevere through it, that is what leads to growth. And if you do the math, if you take out the perseverance, zeroes out the whole equation. And yet it's something that is hard, right? Life wants to beat it out of us, but that perseverance really does make a difference.
And it's true in every area. It's it's in our career, in our family, in our marriages. It's applicable in every area of our lives.
Yeah. So now I have the tougher question for you. This is when the interview gets serious, Bill. What challenges are you facing today that are going to require you to continue growing instead of just saying, I've made it, I figured it out, we're good to go?
Yeah, well, we never get to that point where we've made it and figured it out. If there's anybody out there that has gotten to that point, I'd like to hear from them, because I'm certainly not in that way. But I think there's just the aging process, for those of us in my situation, we it's just harder on the body. We age quicker. I've been lifting myself in and out of bed, in and out of the shower, in and out of the van or the vehicle for, pushing my wheelchair for 30 years. So I've been putting a lot of stress and trauma on my upper body and my shoulders that, your normal able-bodied person doesn't have to put. So, you start to feel those things after a while. You get a lot of wear and tear, a lot of mileage on the old vehicle. And so, you fight through, there's physical pain now. There's, you're not having the strength and energy that I once did. I mean, when I'm talking about wheelchair sports, I can't imagine doing that now, and I'm 49 and I've really noticed in the last couple of years, just again, not having the strength, not having the energy. So mentally that's grinded on me, and that's been a whole nother challenge. And I've had to persevere through that and, deal with that. And again, I'm still dealing with it in some ways, and, we'll always be dealing with it. It's just a part of life. I'm not, I'm somebody who looks 30 or 40 years down the road and say, okay, I'm going to live till I'm 80 or 90. I'm going to, I'll live however long God wants me to live, but, I'm going to fulfill, I'm going to run the race while I'm here as hard as I can, as long as I can. And so when you get to, middle age and beyond, you can start to see the other side. And so you start to question, okay, what am I really here for? And it's not for the external things. Or not for me. Now it's all about trying to have an impact and have an impact on other people's lives, and I think when you're younger, it's more about you, and, especially when you're single and, then you get married and, you realize, oh, I'm a pretty selfish person. And then when you have kids, you really realize, oh, I'm really a selfish person. And so it's, my life isn't about me anymore. It's about, those that are around me, because I'm not going to be here forever. And that's my legacy is just going to be that, I'm not going to be somebody that has any monuments or statues or street names after me. And that's fine. My legacy is going to be what I leave behind for everybody that's coming next behind me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it's really, we talk about it in terms of, naming your destination. And when you know where you're headed, you know where you want to go, you're way more likely to get there than if you're just going through life and you say at the end, like, oops, I really want to leave this legacy. It's kind of too late, but to decide early and take steps every day to leave that legacy, I think really is important. And I think you're doing a great job through your family and your ministry and all the different ways that you serve. But I'm wondering, you talked early on about the importance of the independence that you recognized that you still had, right? Following your accident, when you knew you were going to be a paraplegic, you still had enough independence through the use of of your arms, that is what gave you a lot of motivation to keep going. And so I'm wondering now if connected to why this aging process is hard on you is the recognition that some of that independence is slowly going away. Is there a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It just takes me longer to do things now, and longer to get up and get going in the morning or to get to where I need to be. And I have to pace myself, and I do pace myself. And so I do start to forecast, okay, 10, 20 years down the road, what's it going to be like, but it'll be what it's going to be. I mean, just, not to be just trite about it, but it's, I may need help in 10 years or 20 years or whatever. Luckily my kids will be grown by that time. And, I'll have my wife around or, whatever it might be. But, I just, again, and it goes back to identity. And, I look around, my office or whatever, and I've got medals and trophies and framed jerseys hanging up, and, there's videos out there of me, but that's not me anymore. I can't do those things. And so it, but again, that's true of anybody as they get older. Just for me, it just comes a little bit earlier, but most people, when they get into their, whatever it might be, their 70s or their 80s, they start to lose that sense of independence, or, they're more reliant upon, prescription medication, whatever it may be that they need, or, other people to help them out. And so for me, that aging process, it's just sped up, and it just comes sooner, and I think when I was in my 20s or 30s, I was a little naive about that, because you're not thinking that far down the road. But yeah, it's definitely, it is what it is.
So as you think over, let's say, the next 10 years, and you think about what it's going to take for you to come out of these 10 years as the man you want to be, leaving the legacy you want to be, what growth is it going to take from you in order to get to that temporary destination? Because we're going to count on you living more than the next 10 years, but over the next 10 years.
Yeah, whatever it may be. Just digging in, for the long haul, and growing in my faith. I mean, the less that my identity is in who I am physically, the more it's become who I am spiritually. And so it's really just been digging into my faith, my trust and my hope in my Savior, and that the fact that He's got me, and relying upon that whatever's written is going to be done. And I just I have to rest in that. I have to keep persevering, and keep willing to grow too. And realizing that the challenges are going to continue to come, whatever it may be, but then I think too, the big thing is drawing back on previous experience. It's, and again, athletics is a good place to do that. When you can draw on the lessons that you learned from your previous successes, your previous failures, and realizing that, God's had me every step of the way. He's had my marriage every step of the way. He's had my family every step of the way. And for me, I don't worry about me as much anymore, but I worry about my wife. I worry about my kids. And so there just has to be that trust factor. And, but I think going back to it, just drawing from experiences of the past. And I've had enough experience in my past to know that, okay, I could persevere through this. I could fight through this adversity. I could grow through it. And God's never let me go every step of the way. He's not going to let me go now. So that's, just drawing on past experience as well.
Are you able to identify kind of you've named one end of this spectrum, but I think about our growth kind of as a tug of war sometimes, that there are two elements within us that are fighting. One of them that's pulling us forward is what we call the me I want to be, the bigger me, I want to make a difference. I want to have influence in the people around me. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to be optimistic, kind of all these values that you've talked about. But within us, there's also this pull for the status quo of, I just I don't want to do the hard work of growth. I want things to stay the way they are. For me, it's a lot of, I just want to stay in control, or I want to be secure. For people, it's things like, I just want people to like me. There's always something inside of us that fights against that we have to learn how to live in tension with these. And you're so clear. And one of the things I respect about you is you're so clear on the Bill that you want to be. Have you been able to figure out for you what it is inside of you that you do have to overcome, that's trying to say, no, fight for your independence, fight for this identity as a guy who can do a lot despite all of the challenges you face in life? Like, what is that other pull within you?
Yeah, I mean, we all have insecurities. We all have things that we don't like about ourselves. We all have things that make us feel inferior. We all have memories from our past and things that happened to us when we were younger or whatever that make us feel insecure, that molded us, that shaped us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever it may be. And so for me, it's just, those insecurities, I guess, that they become less as I get older. But it's still there, and fitting in, and how do I fit into the culture around me and with the people that are around me or whatever. So that's that internal fight, is going to be there in all of us, that, and it is, it's easy just to kind of take your foot off the gas and just want to okay, I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to, put one foot in front of the other. I want to just kind of sit here or whatever. But, I've never been that kind of person. I've just been like, okay, I got, I have to do what I need to do, and I need to get out of bed every day, and I need to do what God's called me to do. And I need to be the husband that I'm called to be and the father that I'm called to be. But, you do, I mean, comparison issues. I mean, we all can get caught up in that. And, you look at other people that, well, gee, if I just, had the, I mean, I think when you're younger, you look at it like, well, if I was, good looking like him or funny like him, or, when you get older, you're like, well, I wish that I was, maybe the husband that he is, or the father that he is, or had the career that this person has. That stuff isn't like front and center anymore, but it's still there. We can still get into those comparison issues. And so again, it's just keeping the eyes on the prize. And for me, that's my faith, and that's my Christian walk, and that's my relationship with Jesus, and just being, drawing my identity from him. But those old insecurities they're always right there, right behind the corner for all of us. And so it's, I mean, that's kind of where, the struggle that we'll all have, and that certainly I have, and I'll have to the day I die in some ways.
Yeah. Don't you just wish they could all go away, that we outgrow them at some point in the last few decades of our life? We're just sitting pretty, but
it would be, but those are also the opportunities for growth too. And again, so how do we look at it? Is glass half full or glass half empty?
There you go. Bill, you just need to come teach for us. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's how it goes. All right. Sign me up.
So as we wrap up, I just want to give you a chance to tell our listeners kind of what's going on in your life right now that you're excited about, how people can find you and follow what you're doing. Just tell us what's going on right now. What are you excited about?
I'm just excited about being able to have an impact on the lives of others. And that's really, through my marriage and through my family, and through our church involvement, and through my ministry. I launched a ministry called Life Change Concepts a little over a year ago. And that's a personal finance and a financial stewardship based ministry, and focused primarily on young people and late teens and early 20s, and people that are just kind of getting started in life, to help them develop the financial and the time management skills that they need to be successful. And so many people that I'm sure you run into, that I run into, that are in their 40s or 50s, that develop these skills when they were young, and they're having issues now, and whether it's personal issues or marital issues or family issues and debt issues. And so if we can help young people kind of lay that foundation of what it looks like to to manage your time and to manage your money, and to do it according to God's word. It's all scriptural and biblical based, but we build that spiritual foundation and then branch out into, okay, what does it look like to invest God's way? What does it look like to buy a car and purchase a home and stay out of debt or get out of debt, or budgeting, planning, and just aligning your life in a way that glorifies God, but just makes it a whole lot smoother. And so that's what I'm excited about. I like working with young people, and I'm still involved, with FCA. That'll always be an extension of what I do. And so I'm a team chaplain at a local high school here, working with the football team and the baseball team. So I get to pour into young people and pour into coaches, and just trying to leave that impact for the next generation. Because like I said, 50 years from now, 40 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever it is, I'm not going to be here anymore. And the only thing that's going to matter is, what kind of impact that I leave behind for the next generation, and certainly pouring into my kids and trying to prepare them and, give them that foundation. And I can't wait till they can get a couple years from now where they could take my personal finance class. And, my 15-year-old, he if he gets money, he spends it right away. I mean, he can't keep $2, so I look forward to when he could take my class. But so that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about ministry work, and that's kind of what drives me at this point. And again, and all that takes place through my marriage and my family and my church involvement, and then the ministry that God's blessed me to do now.
I love it. And we will definitely link our listeners to Life Change Concepts in the podcast show notes and on our website. So if anybody themselves is interested in some financial planning lessons and involvement, if they have, probably a lot of our listeners might have young adults in their family, grown kids that might need that. So we will definitely give them your card. Hope you're open for business if we find some people that are interested.
Absolutely. And we could do it virtually too for people that aren't local. So that's fine. It's one of the things that's come out of this COVID world is we've all become accustomed to Zoom. So.
Right. Oh, I'll be glad when this season is over, but I think Zoom is going to be a part of our life forever. So Bill, as we wrap up, any last words of encouragement or advice you'd want to give to our listeners? You've already given so many great nuggets about perseverance and identity and digging in. Anything else you want to say in wrapping up?
Yeah, it's really that kind of sums it up right there. I mean, just don't give up and keep fighting and draw your strength. For me, I draw it from the Lord. And then for those that are around me, with when I was younger, it was, doing it for my parents and through my parents. And now it's for my wife and my kids. And, no matter what you're going through, God can use it, and he will use it if you allow him to. It's we all have those struggles. We all have those trials. We all have things that we have to fight through. And it looks different in different marriages and different families and different individuals. But, life it's not easy, and it wasn't supposed to be easy. But there's great reward when we meet and face and overcome those challenges, and until those next challenges come along. That's just how it goes. So
true. So true. Well, I am so thankful for the role that you and your wife, Amy, have played in my life and my family's life. And I love the ministry that you are doing and investing in the people around you. So really grateful for you taking the time this morning to share your story with us and talk about the challenges that you have faced and in your journey to become really grounded in who you are and what matters. And I think it's an inspiration to everyone who will be listening to our podcast. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate the time. I enjoyed the discussion.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Sarah, like I said at the beginning of our time, what an inspirational story. And it's a set of challenges that I think while we think we can imagine it, we can't imagine it. I mean, one of the things that really hit home for me was this 30 years of upper body strength and just what that does to you physically. But when you think about the emotional cost, the psychological costs, just all of these things, what a great story Bill is. And listen, you're right. The faith thing is a huge part of his story. For me, there is a difference between having your faith kind of define you from the outside in, as we talk about in a leader level sort of way, and really taking ownership of what your faith means to you. And I really put Bill in that latter category. And again, you made this encouragement early on, but I would encourage people to not be resistant in that environment, but to actually be curious, right? To actually, what is it? And for Bill, you can tell the faith is bigger and it's continuing to grow. And that's what happens when we grow with all parts of our understanding, but especially faith perspective. So really appreciate where Bill's coming from. And just hope for our listeners that for any of them that wasn't, I can't listen to this anymore, because I feel like Bill's story is a story worth that people need to know about.
Yeah. I think that ties into one of the things that was so moving to me in his story is this happened to him when he was 18, right? Yeah. It's hard for me, and I'm younger than Bill, but it's even harder for me to go back to 18 and all the things I had planned for my life and all the things I had imagined, and that all gets stripped away for him in that one moment. And he had to go through and say, okay, who am I now that I can't do these things, right? And he talked about how he then had to pivot his whole life, and instead of being able to use his hands, he put his efforts into academia, and then he went and put his efforts into sports. And he talked throughout the interview about this gradual refining of his identity and the importance of that in his overcoming these challenges of, I had to realize I'm not what I can do. I'm not the positions I'm in. I'm not my job. I'm not my family. And for him, it did land in this faith groundedness. And then, now it's moving into this, and what's the legacy I'm going to leave? What is my life going to mean to the people that I have a chance to impact? And I think that's a challenge for all of us, especially people who are kind of earlier in the journey in this more outside in stage of life, where we really have to wrestle through, what are the things that I'm counting on to make me worthwhile, to give me a sense of value, to be my identity. And a lot of times we don't even know what those things are until they're stripped away from us.
I like the way Bill called them comparison issues. My comparison issues, right? And I guess he could do that on the rugby field in a wheelchair, but this whole one of the gifts is, if there is a gift in the challenges that Bill has faced, is that stuff that takes many of us decades to figure out what are the things that we're allowing to define us and keep us from really owning who we are. For people for other stories as well, similar to Bill's, but it's like at 19 years of age to have to figure that out. And then to hear him talk about how some of those pieces were still in place for years, even after the accident. But one of my favorite parts of the interview was actually, it came more in the second half of the interview, but actually this whole idea of shifting now toward wanting to impact the lives of others. I mean, he had a sense of doing that even early on, but now this is like the central purpose for him. And that is a great accelerant for growth for all of us, to be thinking about legacy, to be thinking about, you and I have talked about bigger me values a lot in these podcasts and in the work that we do. But ultimately it's what do I want to be about? What is the difference that I want to make? And when you start focusing on that, it begins to get easier to kind of figure out the things that do hold you in place. And for Bill, some of those challenges are going to be physical. But a lot of it is still up here. It's still in our heads, right? And again, Bill's ability to move through that is just inspirational.
Yeah, one thing that didn't come out in his interview, just related to that, in this idea of how do I impact those around me. Bill he talked about how he does financial counseling with young adults. He does marriage counseling. He does spiritual mentoring, but he also has jumped in feet first into the racial tension. And he's written a book about kind of reconciling the black-white division, and he's leading conversations in that arena that are really powerful. And I love that his influence is broad and far-reaching, and not just the guy in the wheelchair who talks to people about being in a wheelchair. It's like at times you almost forget. When I first met Bill, it was, oh, this is my friend in a wheelchair. And now it's like, oh, I forgot Bill's in a wheelchair. Okay. Because his life is so much more than that these days. And I think he's just done a really great job finding all the ways that he can make a difference in people's lives. And it's really beautiful. And one thing that he referenced in this podcast that we've had more conversations about, and I've heard it from other people as well, is just this idea of, for him, his disability is on the outside for people to see, right? People can look at him and go, oh, I see the obstacles you have to face and the barriers you have to overcome. But we all have some sort of metaphorical wheelchair that holds us back. We just get to hide ours more. And so the challenge of like, how do we all acknowledge there is some disability going on in us that we need to deal with and not try to hide it so much? And I just think that's a really cool challenge and encouragement to everybody.
It makes me think of Jeff Henderson's statement that I'll always walk with a limp in that area.
Yeah.
But anybody who knows Jeff doesn't know that he has that limp, right? It is well disguised. Yeah. Listen, again, thank you for bringing Bill to the audience. It was a really fun interview, just from a kind of for me, it was like a holy smokes kind of thing, right? It was like this is something that when I think about the things that are holding me in place, they feel petty, right, at times, and especially when I get to hold up a compare and contrast in some ways in this way that we got to see in this interview. So I'm so glad that people were able to join us for this one, and we will see you on the next episode of Growing as Grown-Ups.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Growing as Grown-Ups. Take a second and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes, and tell your friends. You'll find all of the goods related to this episode, including the transcript, videos, links, and other ways we can help you keep growing as a grown-up, on our website, growinggrownups.com. Growth isn't easy, but it's completely within your reach. Until next time, journey well, friends.